I started this channel because I want to help other men my age, or even any other men period, who are thinking about going to cosmetology school. Now, I'll be making another video in the future on cosmetology school versus barbering school. It'd be to help other male cosmetologists find success in this business, especially in a female-dominated field. Currently, in the United States, female cosmetologists make up 90.8% of licensed cosmetologists, and men only make up 9.2%, as opposed to barbers. In the barbering world, the percentages of male barbers is 74.4%, and female barbers make up 25.6%. So there's a larger percentage of female barbers than there are a percentage of male cosmetologists. There are many misconceptions about men who study cosmetology rather than barbering. One is, well, if you're a guy, you're supposed to go to barbering school, because why would a guy want to go to cosmetology school? That's too feminine. It offers more services to people than barbering. That's why cosmetology school is substantially more time in school than barbering is. Barbering tends to be limited to things more like cutting, straight razor work, certain kinds of haircuts and everything. A majority of men who go to barbering school are not interested in performing women's services. In my own experience, a lot of people think because I'm a guy that I probably have more male customers than I do female customers, but actually the contrary is true. I actually have more female customers than male. One of the reasons for this, when I tell people, is that when it comes to men's cuts, with a few exceptions like my own cut and stuff like that, men's cuts fall into one of four basic categories. There's the all-over scissor cut, or what I call the conservative men's cut. There's the standard buzz cut. There's a military high and tight skin fade. And there's a standard clipper scissor combo that I call the GQ special, because it reminds me of GQ magazine, where the guys on the covers have their really short, clean sides and back, but there's enough on top to throw some gel in and style it. Now, in some future videos, I'm going to get into being able to offer barbering services, even if you just have a cosmetology license. I'll get into that in another video. But one of the other misconceptions is that men don't care how they look. Men don't care how their hair is cut, if they present a presentable image or whatever. And I'm here to disagree with that. A majority of my male clients, believe it or not, are teenagers. And these are not emo kids who are, rebelling against the system. These are very clean-cut kids. They're the ones that are actually participating in the pompadours that I do, skin fades, hard parts, straight razor shaves, and so on and so forth. Of course, I do have plenty of adults that are partaking of those services, but for the most part, it's a lot of my teenage customers. I have one of my teenage customers who, when he comes in, he has the full service. He has a wash, cut, beard trim and shaping, or full face shave and neck shave. Trying to build your clientele and trying to increase your business, you might want to think about trying to offer more services. I see a lot of, on the online forums, people asking questions such as, how do I build my clientele? How do I get more people in my chair? How do I get more people to request me? How do I get more referrals? And I'm going to cover that in depth in another video, but for the purposes of this one, I'll just skim the surface. Especially if you're fresh out of school, but that's the hardest part. Deciding whether to go to work in a corporate setting or to go booth rent. I'll be covering that in another video as well. However, for like the other thing, I'll touch on this briefly. When you go directly into self-employment, if you're going to booth rent or whatever, your challenge is you don't really have a clientele built up. Unless you have a boatload from school that'll follow you. And a lot of private salons really don't have a flow of walk-ins, spontaneous walk-ins where you can actually build your clientele. That's where working in a corporate setting might be a little bit more pertinent fresh out of school, because it allows you a steady influx of customers. It's a great way to build your clientele. highlight your skills and show these people what you can do. One of the other things I talk about to a lot of my customers and all that is the quality and value of service. I have a few colleagues in the business who are, they're the kind of get them in, get them out in 10 minutes. Don't really focus on, making sure everything is super clean, super tight. Make sure the customer is ecstatic, and because the best way to build your clientele is to get people to absolutely love what you do. And one of the other things that I talk about is how it's one thing when your customer goes home and they look in the mirror and they think they like it and they think they look good and everything, but what really helps their self-esteem is when other people in their lives, such as family, friends, co-workers, comment on it. Oh, where'd you get your hair done? Oh, so-and-so does it. Oh, can I have his number? That's how you get referrals. So the best way to build your clientele, focus on your skills. Get better at what you do. Watch tutorials online. If you're struggling with a particular type of cut or service, watch tutorials on just that. Or watch different people. Different people have different methods. In some of the areas that I used to struggle, I would watch different videos by different people doing that very same cut. A lot of them would use a different method for getting to the end of that cut. So I would try some of this person's methods and see if that worked for me. I tried some of that person's and so forth. Sometimes they were helpful, sometimes they weren't. After watching several dozen, I finally started to kind of incorporate various different methods. But even then, it wasn't coming out perfect. So then I actually added my own tweak to the cut, so that I could fine-tune, any problem areas and so forth. In essence, eventually creating my own method. So focusing on what you're doing. I tell people the two most important things in this business are, number one, pay attention. Let me back up a little bit. First thing you need to do is listen to the customer. A lot of my longtime loyal customers, when they first came to me, had just had their hair butchered by somebody else. A lot of times, some people may not know how to ask for what they want. So if you're asking them, what would you like to do today, and they're not sure, I ask the opposite question. Tell me what you don't like about your last cut. What don't you like about your hair? When you do that, that's the easier question from the answer. Well, I don't like this and I don't like that. From there, you can formulate a plan of what they might want. And then you might make your suggestions, kind of try to give them an idea of what it looks like. And there's a large percentage of time they will say, go ahead and do it. For instance, I once recently had one of my loyals come to me. I hadn't seen in a little while because I moved from one salon to the other. She found my business card and gave me a call. I'll say older woman. She's in her 60s, and she has the unfortunate problem of thinning. And the way her hair was laying, it was kind of emphasizing that. So she wasn't sure exactly what she wanted to do. She asked my recommendation. So I made my recommendation, what I thought would help it to look more like she wanted. Because, again, she didn't know what she wanted, so I asked her what she didn't like. Told me what she didn't like. I made my suggestions. She said do it. So I did it, and she loved it. So, like I said, one of the most important thing is to listen. Because they will tell you what they want or what they don't want. The second most important thing is pay attention to what you're doing. Learn to be precise. One of the most common complaints I hear from people is that while some person was cutting their hair, their stylist was jibber-jabbing with somebody else, like a colleague in the next station or another customer that popped in. So their heads turn and not even paying attention to what they're doing, and they screw up the cut. Focus on your customer. You can talk to your colleagues afterwards. Those are two of the most important things you want to do. I read somewhere a while back, and it's absolutely true. There's two main reasons why people will come back to you. First is because they like what you did. And number two, because they like you personally. So it helps to be very personable, try to carry on a conversation, learn to multitask, where you can carry on a conversation, but you're paying very close attention to what you're actually doing. Now, there are some people, I'll run across them, who aren't very talkative. I'll ask a few general questions about life to see if they're interested in chatting, and some of them will just give you those short one-word answers, in which case I just shut up and finish the cut. So not everybody's going to be overly congenial. It's part of the business. Don't take it personally. They may not just like you, they might dislike everybody, so it's not you. The next part is value of service. What exactly are they getting for their money? Are you getting them in and out in 10 minutes? Or do you take a half an hour? And even if your skills, are such that you can do it faster than half an hour, maybe you need to take a few extra moments and fine-tune it. Maybe ask them, say it's a male client, will they like a hard part? Will they like, do they want it styled this way? Do they want it styled that way? Or say you're doing a fade. Try to make it cleaner and tighter. Spend a few extra minutes. A large majority of my clientele always tell me they don't mind spending a few extra minutes in my chair because they know I'm using that time to make it as clean and the best that I can. And they appreciate that. One of the most common comments I get is my attention to detail. And that's what you want to do. Focus on what you're doing. Learn to do what you're doing. In another video, I'll cover the concept of people who don't bother learning new concepts. A lot of other videos out there for self-improvement, no matter what you're doing, they always tell you to focus on getting better at what you do. Don't worry about what the person's doing next to you. Even if they've been in the business longer, being in the business longer doesn't necessarily mean you're better. Because a lot of people, in my opinion, have come to the point where they think they know it all. There's no room to learn. You try to teach us something new or suggest something, and they, just blow you off. See, and well, I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone. You do your thing. I'll do mine. So unfortunately, there's a few of those in this business who already know everything and they can't be taught anything new. So be open to learning new things. If you run across what looks like an interesting video of maybe it's a cut you do 1,000 times a week, but maybe somebody has a different take on it, go watch it. Most of it might be, exactly the way you do it. They might throw a little something you didn't think of that, makes it even more interesting. You can incorporate that. Always be open to learning new things. And just always keep in mind value of service. Because, so maybe you don't charge a whole lot for a cut. And you might think, well, it's going to take a whole lot of cuts to make a decent paycheck this week. But what happens when business is slow? Everybody in this business knows, in the fall, especially around October, after the back to school rush is over, business takes a dive. We're all standing around doing nothing because October, beginning of November is always a really slow time. So what are you doing to keep busy? Well, if you focused on your values of service, focused on your skills, those people that you have turned into loyal customers will come back and see you. So you will be constantly busy with somebody in your chair while your colleagues are standing around hoping to get a client. And last, I want to talk about age, especially getting into cosmetology. Now, when I went to cos school, I had a couple of male classmates who were younger than me. I'm substantially older than I look. Most people accuse me of being in my 30s, but I'm actually in my 50s. So I was in my 40s when I went to hair school. So you might think, am I too old to go? Am I too old to change occupation? Especially I'm a guy, a good majority of my classmates were my daughter's age. So did that stop me? I was a little hesitant, my age, my gender, et cetera, but I thought, you know what? Who cares? I'm always open to learning something new. So I didn't let that stop me or slow me down. I forged ahead, and I'm much happier for it. I do not regret it whatsoever. Now, I've seen posts online where people, whether they're male or female, are thinking, okay, I'm in my 40s, I might be in my 50s. It's like, am I too old to do this? Prior to working in hair, I used to work in mental health, and I used to take the clients to the behavioral clinic to have their shots and all that. And working there was this male nurse. He was in his 60s, and he decided at the age of 57 to go to nursing school. So the way I look at it, you're never too old to learn something new, never too old to go to school. The way I look at it, The day you're too old is the day you're dead, because you don't have a choice anymore. So if you're thinking about it, you're thinking about going to college school or barbering school and entering this field, it doesn't matter your age. I don't care if you're 19, if you're 49, if you're 59. Do it. You'll be happier because of it. And don't let anybody else put you down, say, really? Hair school? Nobody in my world at the time would ever have thought I would be going to cosmetology school. So don't let anybody else detract you from it. Don't let anybody else persuade you one way or the other. You make the choice. If you're thinking about it, go check out the school. They'll give you a free tour. They'll let you watch some of the students and everything, give you an idea if it's something you want to do. They'll discuss, what it costs, the length of school and everything else. And most schools are really good about not only preparing you for your state board exam, but making sure you understand the material to pass and what it takes to get licensed. They walk you through it, they help you through it. And so that's all I have for this video. I'm going to try to make one video a week. If you like what I had to say, please like, subscribe, share. Maybe share it to some of your colleagues, or maybe some of your male colleagues, or even a friend of yours that may be thinking about hair school and doesn't know if he wants to. I intend on covering many subjects over the next few months. So please join me, and I will see you next time.